I would like to thank His Excellency Dr. Shahid Amin Khan for associating me with this event. Discussion on human rights must remain constant in our discourse and forever alive in our thoughts and in our actions. Human rights are of importance in themselves and should never be instrumentalized or weaponized. They are essential to advance peace, human dignity, to empower women and girls, to promote sustainable development, and more importantly, to spark hope. Ladies and gentlemen, the rights of every human being are enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and have become a template for building resilience and preventing crises. Diplomacy needs to be empowered to promote human rights. The primary responsibility to uphold and champion human rights rests with government, and every measure must be taken to help ease tensions, deliver sustainable development, and sustain peace. Organizations like the UN has a review mechanism to highlight the realities on the ground. But when will it have an even stronger mechanism to hold those members to account? Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, every day we read about human rights struggles on my continent in Africa, but I remain convinced that human rights inspire and drive progress. To make a lasting impact, however, it must become part of the DNA of each one of us. Whilst there are few successes around the globe, we have to be honest to recognize that human rights agenda are losing grounds in many parts of the globe, but still, one must not lose hope. There are troubling trends, no doubt, but we are all also witnessing powerful movements for human rights and social justice. Black people, youth, indigenous people, migrants, and refugees are demanding their rights and making their voices heard. Journalists are fearlessly getting the stories out in spite of many losing their lives on the battlefields. Women are bravely standing up and saying, "Me too." Ladies and gentlemen, more and more people are speaking out about cultural rights and how important they are for protecting the diversity of beliefs and practices. Recognizing these rights are essential for our common heritage. Greater recognition must be given on ensuring the rights for persons with disabilities. Even scourges like terrorism can only be fought when human rights are upheld. 1 billion people, ladies and gentlemen, have been lifted out of extreme poverty in just one generation. More than 2 billion people have gained access to improved sanitation and improved drinking water sources. The mortality rates for children under 5 has declined by almost 60%. It is in this overall context of progress and concern that I want to focus on a few human rights challenges as I scan the global horizon. The understanding that underpins this effort reflects the indivisible and interdependent nature of civil, political, economic, social, and cultural rights. Excellencies, let's begin with women, those who hold up half the sky. In every continent, women have been elected to lead and occupy key positions in government. Gender gaps in education are closing around the world. Maternal mortality has dropped by nearly half, but still much remains to be done. Untold women and girls still face insecurity, violence, and other violations to their rights every day. COVID-19 has revealed and exposed many such violations. Doors of economic opportunity remain closed, glass ceilings abound. Let's never forget gender equality remains a question of power. At present trends, it will take 2 centuries to close the gap in economic empowerment. I do not accept a world that tells my daughter that economic equality can wait for another 100 years. I know you agree. Our world cannot wait. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in every corner of the globe and on the internet, civic space is decreasing. Activists and journalists are being targeted by surveillance, misinformation campaigns, and with threats of violence. The immediacy and reach of online threats pose serious challenges to those who wish to speak up. Cyberspace has become the next frontiers for bullying, and technology is being misused for undue surveillance and interference with free speech and shrinking the space for dialogue. The downside is that human rights defenders, media workers, environmentalists, and journalists have been killed in the last few years. Culprits must be prosecuted. Respect for human rights is just a game of words if there is no respect for people. We must work towards to close the gap in discriminatory laws and practices that target the people in the working place, in accessing public services, or in communities simply because of their sexual orientation, religion, or gender identity. Excellencies, we are seeing a huge spike in xenophobia, racism, and intolerance. Hate speech is a menace to democratic values, social stability, and peace, and unfortunately, it's moving mainstream and in conspiracy theories. It is abetted by public discourse that tends to stigmatize women, minorities, migrant, refugees, and any so-called the other, those who pray differently and those who look different. Political parties and leaders are cutting and pasting these ideas into their own propaganda and electoral campaigns. Ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, poverty is a denial of human rights. It is a fact that our world since the 1990s has achieved remarkable progress in fighting extreme poverty and lifted millions out of absolute poverty. Yet today, the benefits of economic growth are unevenly shared. Inequality is growing within and among countries. Recent figures tell us that 8 richest persons on this planet collectively own more than 50% of the poorest. Sharp increases in inequality not only limits economic growth, they are also the recipe for instability and discontent, and social media is only enabling this disparity. Ladies and gentlemen, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development Goals are our contribution to a fair globalization and clearest blueprint for realizing the rights of all. The greatest challenges facing the world of today and tomorrow is climate change. It will soon make the current pandemic look like child play. This threat has a clear pathway, hotter, severe, and destructive. We need to push for a human right-based approach to the environment and to promote climate justice. The right to a healthy environment has the potential to make a difference, but many are still in denial. The upshot of this is that over 90% of the world's urban population is still breathing unsafe air, which accounts for millions of premature deaths each year, including thousands of children. Climate change is seriously impacting agriculture, especially in Africa, and thus exacerbating hunger, impacting those who are already vulnerable. Excellencies, human rights must remain at the center of our efforts to promote peace and security and advance the right to development, including the SDGs. Let us move our world forward with and for human rights. Let us continue to fight the battle, make the case for human equality, human dignity, and human rights for one and all, but with a heavy dose of empathy. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Madam.